All right, so here we have the lion family to date. Well, you can see that I have found positions for all three subjects, four if you consider the tree. I have done the faces of the king, the lioness, and the cub. The king seems to have a pretty good puffy nose and cheek that I wanted to get, and the chin is pretty well prominent as well. And the eyes in the right spot. Got some of the contours for the forehead and the upper forehead as well. The nose region, that's pretty good. I'll have to sand it down and clean it a bit. I did get the linchpin to fix pretty well. I got the edge of the ear right on the forehead. There needs some cleanup here, and to seamlessly put it in right here. And I got it to go down deep enough to sit like it is where she's pushing into the side of his right cheek, so that the ear sticks out and it's obviously behind him. So that worked out pretty well. Still a little bit of cleanup, but for the most part, that's really nice. The hair, got it wavy, and I'll get a little more waviness in here. I'll have to clean all these areas in here and get all the debris out of there. I'll have to point in some of these areas here to get it a little more clearly defined as a lot of hair. I'll have to clean up some of this, removing that. And I'll be sharpening some of these too. See how these are kind of all very square. I'll be cutting in there to get those hairs to look more pointy. And additionally, that will make it appear as more hair when it's pointy. So got the hair coming across the front left paw, and I'll define the left paw a little more so it's clearly that, in case people are like, what is that? So, but I did get the hair to come across and seamlessly move into the paw itself. I got chin hair here underneath the neck, and I got some larger pieces and smaller pieces here to appear as if it overlaps. Down here I will put in a little more hair that will line up to appear behind this four-fronted left leg of the lioness. This paw here is really meant to just be a little bit forward and extending back into the body region. Got some hair coming out right here over the top of that paw, obscuring the rest of the paw that goes into his body. This leg here of the lioness, it's sticking out, and it's got the bone structure and the contour that it needs for the most part. Cleanup is obviously needed, and rounding a bit as well. The lioness's forehead was quite difficult. Difficult meaning challenging and fun to do. So I got the contours on her cheek and the extension of her cheek, how far it goes back to the jawbone. The head itself is actually cut down deep here, but it has to be because she's pointing at this angle, so it has to head in that direction. And so it looks like it's deeper here, which in fact it is, but it has to look that way in order to get her head to look like it's pointed in the right direction. The eye here, the eyebrow range here has to be taller or higher than the area behind it, which it is. It's a small hole here. The neck region coming off of the head. We got the ear in a triangular like shape coming back here as well. The nose, it's in the area of her mouth will round a bit in this area. I'll have to round that a bit. It's a little too flat at this stage, but it'll be slightly rounded. But I have to be careful because of the fact that right here, if you look right here, there's going to be a few levels here. You have the lip region, I suppose. The area below her nose is high, and then you have part of her mouth region here, which is lower, and then you have her mouth here, which is yet lower. So then that lines up with her jaw. No, her mouth down here, her lower jaw, which is separated from the depth of her actual jaw, a little higher, and then of course up by her ear. So all of those depths have to be put in there in order for it to look correct. So I think I got that pretty well. Cleaned up her body a bit. It's higher here because this is where her shoulder blade meets her body, and her leg down here. Her leg will be separated approximately right here. This area will be cut into and separated from her head, so that it's clearly different than her head, and her leg is clearly separated, and I'll get to that. So what next? The back of her body, it's gotten pretty rounded up and contoured there. I'll put some more contours in the side of her left rib cage, this area here. You won't see any ribs because she's a healthy lion, but there are contours of muscle here that I'll need to put in. Let's see, the cub was pretty simplistic. It's really just the front paw, and then her shoulder region, and then neck, and then the head. So these all had to be different levels. And then coming off the back of the head into the body, this is really just going to be more or less as it is now, except sanded and cleaned. This ear appears to stick out a little far, but it needs to be that way because this part here will go back a bit. So this height here needs to stay the same. So I'll be doing a little work here. I have finally got the mouth region correct and the nose as well. So I'll clean up this area here, put a little more indentation here, clean up the eye and the brow region as well. Got the underside of the neck, I think, just right now, so I think we're good there. Clean up the mouth, get the nose and so on in there. So that's pretty good. So then finally I got a bit of grass up in the front, or a foliage of some nature. For the most part, it'll be clean, sanded, and all these areas in here that you see will have further lines appearing as if there's even more grass. So grass is kind of like hair. You got to put in a lot of it, but you don't want to overdo it. Otherwise, you know, it just looks like you just carved in a bunch of lines for no reason. So you have your big pieces here that you can see, and then there'll be little pieces coming off of all the big pieces in addition to in between. So we'll try to not do too much, but we'll try to do just enough. So we'll do that. We got some coming up on the forearm here, which is good as well. It shows a little bit of randomness of how grass would sit. Finally, I have the tree here. This is supposed to be one of the older, either dead or nearly dying or super dry like trees that you would see in the natural habitat of lions, which is, I would say, you know, the African desert or the tundra or something to that nature. So it's really, you know, lined and pretty brittle looking, but also so big and bulbous that it's just it would take an elephant to push over. So that came out okay. I'll be doing a little more work, making some of these lines much deeper, and then when I do shadow, I'll be putting in a lot of shadow here as well to make it look super old and gnarled and everything. So at present, I think I've done pretty well. Lastly, after I do all the things I just said, I'll start adding choice pieces of hair all over the body. This is a hairy animal, but it's really short hairs. So you got your super long hairs, and then you got your noticeable hairs that aren't too crazy. So, you know, I gotta come up with a good method not to go crazy with hair. Otherwise, again, it just looks like you're throwing in lines for no reason. All right, I'll continue.